Back to the Speakeasy podcast. Today we are talking about the wide world of youth sports. And I'm just be honest, we're either going to give you a lot of permission or we're going to step on your toes or possibly both. Today I am joined by two former athletes themselves, as well as dads that are navigating having children that are athletes, coaching them. Ed and Brian are the authors of Away Game, a Christian parent's guide to navigating youth sports. And I devoured this book. And I don't even actually technically have a kid in youth sports. You're going to find out more about that as we get into the episode. I shared a lot of our story and our experiences with this, what they call the youth sports industrial complex. But we got into like, how did we get here? How much has changed since we were kids playing sports? And what is the good? What is the negative? But most importantly, how can we navigate having kids that play sports in a way that pushes them towards the gospel, that navigates, instead of them becoming more like the world, them becoming more like Jesus? And spoiler alert, that really lands in our laps as the parents. And so this is a great conversation. Like I said, might step on your toes a little bit, but yeah, that's why you come here, isn't it? All right, you guys, welcome to the Speakeasy.
Thanks for having us, Blake.
Thanks, Blake.
We are going to talk about youth sports. And I was telling y'all before we started recording, there's a chance we're going to step on some toes because your book stepped on my toes a little bit. And you know what? I think that's like what the best way to learn, the best way to expand our understanding and grow is to maybe like let it be a little bit uncomfortable. But I think there was a lot of, we chatted for a while before we started recording. I was like, I wish I would have had this book 6 months ago, because there are things that I was like, oh, I could have done that better. But also there were things in it that were affirming. I was like, okay, all right, we got this part a little bit better. And so yeah. I am super excited. I think this book is really necessary, and I'm excited to kind of get to expand it out into conversation. You guys both have backgrounds in sports. And so let's kick this off, getting to know each other a little bit. Brian, tell me what does your world of sports look like?
Yeah, let me see if I can check some of these biographical boxes. I grew up playing every sport imaginable. I got cut from everything, though, my freshman year of high school. Ended up running track and cross country because it's the only sports that you can't get cut from. And ended up being pretty decent at it. So got a scholarship to run at Wake Forest University, ran there all 4 years. And then right after college, married my high school sweetheart, Lindsay. Soon after that, coached a little bit of college track and cross country, but then joined staff with Athletes in Action. And that's the sports ministry I'm a part of right now. And so I have a pretty long history of being an athlete. I have a longer history of being involved in sports ministry. And now, along with being on staff with Athletes in Action, I'm also a high school cross country and track coach. And so kind of getting back to coaching as well. So my life has just been colored by sports at basically every juncture that I've been at. I live in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and I have 3 kids. All of them play sports to some extent. High school, middle school, and elementary school.
Yeah. So that's like, that really truly does cover it. Like, not like background in athletics, but then also like you are a Christian parent trying to guide your kid through sports, which is,
I'm in the thick of it right now.
You're in the thick of it, which is who this book is written to. So perfect. Yeah. Okay. Boxes checked. Ed, your turn.
So very similar, different sports, different parts of the country, but very, very similar story. I grew up on the west side of Cleveland with a high school football coach. My dad was a football coach. I played everything, but then I wound up focusing on basketball, and that's what I wound up getting pretty good at. And I went to play in college. I ended up not playing in college. I got to play overseas all through my 20s. So again, it's just kind of a crazy story, but I got every last bit out of basketball that I could possibly get. I married Amy. We got married 26 years ago, and she was a 2-sport athlete in college. We have 4 kids, all of whom have played sports. One played in college, one played basketball. The other ones played high school, and now one is in 9th grade. It's kind of like our last chance. He's our last one that's at home. And just like Brian, I've worked in a sport ministry my entire vocational life. So for the last 35 years, I and he have worked with college and professional athletes. But we both got thrown into this youth sports thing when we started to coach our kids' sports, and we were just looking around and we were like, we really don't know what we're doing. As Christians, we feel like we got on this super fast train that seems to be going in a place that's unfamiliar to what we grew up with, and they're not exactly sure how to navigate it. And so it's funny, we all wish we had this book a long time ago, and it steps on our toes too. But it's also an encouragement, and that's really why we wrote it. We wanted to encourage parents that you can take a deep breath. Let's label things and call things what they are, and then ask what can we do differently in the midst of what's happening while
Yeah.
we're riding on this train. Do we have to stay on it? If we're going to stay on it, what does it look like to stay on it? So those
Yeah.
are questions that Brian and I really, for the last 10 years, we've been researching and talking to people and experiencing ourselves. And we finally turned it into this book called Away Game.
Yeah. I'm so thankful that you did because I so I was a dancer. I wasn't a big like athlete. Um, but even that world has changed as dramatically with
Mm,
what you guys call the youth sports industrial complex, which I think is such an apt name for it. But I think there are a lot of parents our ages looking around asking the same question, going, why is this train going so fast and where is it going and why does it feel like no matter what when I got on the train that I'm way behind, I think is a big thing that a lot of parents struggle with, like my kid's 8 and I'm like,
yeah.
oh
Yep.
no, like we've missed it, we haven't, but it can feel that way. And even before like y'all the book got to me and I knew that we're gonna get to do this, I had kind of been starting to look into like how did we get here? What changed? Because this is not the sports of my childhood or your childhoods or a lot of people's. And so let's start there. Like why
Yeah.
is it so different? How did it change so drastically?
Yeah, it really is fascinating, actually. And we devote one chapter in the book to it. We don't spend much time there because, again, we're trying to focus on, okay, what can we do with this? But the
Right.
history, it really is fascinating. I think it's important to say it's not normal what we're experiencing right now. And it's
Thank you
really
for saying that.
yeah, it's not. Um, it's really the result of a number of cultural threads that all hit at the same time that help create an environment where youth sports could become a $40 billion industry. And we've been saying that now for 6 months. I bet it's higher than that now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah, it's a $40 billion industry. And so, as we always say, there's nothing wrong with making money on different things. But when that kind of money starts to get involved, you know that the kids are probably what's best for them is probably not going to be the highest priority.
Yeah.
Uh, and so there were all sorts of things that ended up happening. ESPN was created in 1979 that made sports a 24/7 thing and gave it godlike qualities.
Yeah.
Um, People, this will sound so random, but people started filling out college applications and needing extracurriculars in order to get into college and playing youth sports or dancing or a cheer or Cub Scouts, all these different things that you could get involved in as a kid started to really matter for your future.
Yeah.
Um, there was a move to being afraid to leave our kids outside. Again, there's this whole history to how this developed in the 80s and 90s where there was this stranger danger that was created
Mhm.
because there were some high profile abductions that happened with kids that resulted in them losing their lives, and that just spread across the country, this fear of letting our kids do unstructured play or to
Yes.
just be down the street on their own. It didn't used to be like that, but that was a huge part of it. Sports themselves stopped being primarily funded by local communities and started becoming funded by entrepreneurs and people that were starting clubs. And some of that was because the economy, had shifted at different times and there wasn't money available for these extracurriculars. So entrepreneurs stepped in and said, well, we'll make it. There was the onset of Disney making a huge sports complex down on their property
Yeah.
that continued to make money. They did this around 2000, and it continued to make money even when the other parks were losing. When 9/11 happened, people kept coming to this sports facility and kept spending money even when they were afraid to go to other places. And so now you have sports facilities popping up all over the country.
Yeah.
So there's other things that have happened to you, but you mash all that together. And in the last 20 years, suddenly you've got this $40 billion industry that has just radically shifted the way youth sports are happening. It used to be about play, and now it's mostly about performance and winning.
Mm,
It used to be really kid-centered, and now it's very adult and coach and parent-centered. It was affordable where everybody could play and access, and now it's like an expensive luxury
yeah.
that you have to save to be able to be involved. It used to be local, now it's going across state lines. It used to be seasonal, where you just played for a short amount of time, and now it's year round. And then last, it used to be just fun in the moment, and now it's stress about the future.
Yeah.
Every time you show up for something, it's not just about what's happening now, but like you said, we're always worried that we're falling behind, or what will this mean for next year, or will they make their high school team in 10 years in
Yeah.
that sport? That's all really different, and it creates a ton of stress. It's stressful even hearing me say all that, isn't it? It's just stressful.
Yeah.
It is, and we talk about the two main casualties of this historical sh of all these historical shifts that have taken place are one that our kids have become commodities. Like it really is the youth sports industrial complex has become brilliant at marketing itself and making you feel like you said, like your kid's behind. It's like my kid right now. We haven't given our middle child an iPhone yet, but our house is miserable because all she wants is that phone because everybody else has it. And we've kind of created that new sport. It's like everybody else is going to this league. Everybody else has the $600 bat. Everybody else has this and that. And it creates this, man, if I don't have this, if I'm not going to this place, I'm left behind, or I'm never going to be able to catch up. And so that's one
Yeah.
is we've commodified kids, but then two, this might even be even greater, is that the opportunity to build character in our kids has taken the back seat to making money and them pursuing elite and winning at all costs. And so
Yeah.
we've lost two really important things, almost the personhood of our kids, but also building their souls and their characters in the midst of all this.
Yeah, and what I
Agreed.
love about the book is that you guys are trying to like give parents an option or a way to do that while kind of understanding and tell me if you agree with this. It kind of seems like being in the like industrial complex is kind of the only option now. Like there aren't a ton
Yeah.
of rec leagues. There's not a ton of pickup games or, options for what I would call like a slower pace, something that you can ease into. Like it, I mean, and maybe that's locational,
Yeah.
but a
Yep.
lot of the time it kind of seems like it just doesn't even exist. Like if you want your kid to play baseball, you got to play travel ball. Like that just like kind of is what it is. And
We're
so
having two
then,
separate conversations in the book. I'll go continue and then I'll kind of
no, I
comment
was
on
just gonna
that.
say, so like you guys are not. What I appreciated is that you're not like pull your kids out of everything,
Yeah.
like don't do it. You're giving the bulk of the book is spiritual formation versus sports formation, and it's how you can still do this well within these confines. But then there's those of, I mean, I'll say us, like myself, that are like, don't wanna. I don't wanna. Like, this is not, I don't know if this is what's best for my kid, you know?
You
Yeah,
don't
we're
want to what, Blake? You don't want to be, excuse me, Brian, just to
yep.
clarify, what do you not want to do?
I don't want to travel all over the place. I don't want them to have practice 5 nights a week. I don't want
Okay.
them to like I don't want to have to pay a bunch of money. Like
Yeah.
I
Yep.
I don't want to,
Yeah.
but then like you're stuck in this spiral of like, well, then am I not giving my kid any opportunities? Am I
Yeah.
holding them back? You know?
Yeah. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, Blake and everybody else listening, you don't have to do that. Like you don't have to continue in the rat race of what everybody else is doing. In fact, like the latest research is saying that the kids who are kind of thrust into all these elite leagues and who would be considered as elite as kind of between juniors and seniors, call them junior elite, rarely, if ever, become elite when they get to high school. Like it's almost the research is almost pointing to the opposite. Like the more involved your kid is, especially at specializing young, the less opportunity they're going to have to reach their potential later in
Yeah.
life. And so the system really it's not delivering on its promises. And if anything, it's almost set up to do the opposite. 70% of kids right now are quitting youth sports by the age of 13, in large part because it's not fun. And so
They're over it.
for the
They
listeners
are.
saying like I don't want to feel like I have to, you don't have to, and you probably shouldn't at some level. What we're trying to do in the book is have two parallel conversations. One is to say, hey, here's what the youth sports industrial complex is doing. Here's how it got to where it is today. It's motivated by money, and you don't have to follow along with the craziness.
Yeah.
But the other conversation is regardless of what you choose, whether you're spending $100 or $1,000, or we just heard somebody this morning spending $16,000 a year on their kid, regardless of how much money you're spending, your job as a parent of your kid is to use their athletic experience as a discipleship opportunity. And so
Yeah.
we're trying to say like be careful, here's language and categories to think about, here's what's going on. Regardless of what you decide, it's still your primary job as a parent to be their primary discipler. Because if you don't, sport culture is going to do it for you. And you don't want
Right.
sport culture discipling
And
your
that's a
kid.
huge point that y'all make in the book, which I love. And it's so countercultural, which is like sports don't build character. The sport, playing the sport is not what builds character in your child. Because I think anybody that's been around kids that are playing sports that aren't being spiritually formed, that aren't being guided and corralled, they can be little jerks sometimes. Like there can be a serious sense of like entitlement and being better than everybody. So like that we can't just like lay that in the lap of sports. What builds character is people, right? Parents, good coaches, investment, taking these things and turning them into an opportunity, like you said, to disciple. And so I do think that there are parents. Okay, I'm gonna say, like, we put my youngest in competitive cheer because she's good, but also because we were like, this is what we've been told. This is what's gonna like be good for her future, what's gonna be good for her developmentally and character. And let me tell you, it was none of those things. It was none of those
Mm,
things.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and so I think I want to roll it back even a little bit based on what we said about, do I have to do this? And you said this, Blake, we're all in different situations. We all have
Absolutely.
different opportunities that are even available to us. And the reality is there aren't very many rec leagues or YMCA leagues, although they're starting to pop up. There's sort of a
Mm-hmm.
counter movement starting to arise where even churches, I know Fellowship of
Yeah.
Christian Athletes has started a whole branch within their ministry specific to make clubs that will be, main, hopefully more sane versions of what's happening. But you may not have the opportunity. But even if you wind up, let's say, like Brian said, you get on some club and they're a year-round thing. That's the other thing. They're always going to make year-round possibilities for you. You don't have to do that.
Right.
You can pay your money and you can play in the season, and then you can say, we're not going to be a part of that. Well, if you don't, that's okay. We're going to take a break for whatever our reasons are. A lot of people want to have their Sundays back. You can take your Sunday back, even though most tournaments and most sports are happening across weekends. You can make an arrangement that says we're not going to be at every single Sunday morning game. We'll be available from noon on or whatever.
Right.
You can do that. Like you can choose to make choices even in the midst of what's being offered to say we're going to do this, we're not going to do that. We can do a time budget, a calendar budget, especially when you get multiple kids playing. That's when you really start to lose your mind.
Yeah.
So we're going to take seriously doing a budget. We're going to look at our year. We're willing to miss this many Sundays, or we're willing to do this for us, across a 6 week period of time, and then we're going to stop.
Yeah.
That's something we want to just encourage listeners to realize that you really can do that
Yeah.
um,
You can
at
create your
very
own
little
boundaries
cost.
within the system.
Yes. Yes, boundaries within the system. That's a great way to say it. At very little cost to your kid. In fact, again, as we're saying, we actually think it'll benefit them even
Benefit.
athletically in the long run to take
Yeah.
those breaks.
Yeah. No, that makes so much sense because like can you imagine like for us, I mean I'm 37. I I can't imagine having been burnt out on the thing that I loved by 13. Like I was just
No.
starting to really get good at it. I was just starting to feel like I had agency and ownership and I knew what I was doing. But because I wasn't doing it in this like pressure cooker, essentially, because my parents were just letting me do what I loved, what ended up happening was by the time I went to high school, I lived at the studio. I
Mhm.
lived at the studio because I could drive myself. So I wasn't like begging somebody to take me. And I loved it. And I
Yeah.
really, really, again, like the culture didn't exist then, but I'm so thankful that nobody was like, you have to practice 5 days a week and perform on the weekends.
Yeah.
That like, I did eventually kind of make that choice,
Mhm.
but it wasn't put upon me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's good. And it sounds like your parents gave you some autonomy in the process too, which is a thing
Right.
that we're calling parents to take back, is to not take back, but almost to give back autonomy
Right.
to kids. What would it look like for parents before the season started to say, "Hey, little Johnny or Sarah, do you want to play this sport this year? Yes or no?" Instead of just putting them in because last year we put them in it. Um, and I think parents would be surprised at what they would say. And maybe you're in a household where you're like, our kids have to do something. Totally get that. But do they have a choice over what sport they're going to play? Or have you declared that the Smiths are a lacrosse family and that's just what everybody's going to do? We're going to play lacrosse year round. So
Yeah.
we really do think there's some benefit to giving kids autonomy in the process. Man, if you want them to play past 13 to 15 to 16 to 17, it's going to be because they love it and they want to do it. Man, you don't want them to do it just because mom and dad made them do it.
Right. And there are
Brian,
the
you're bringing.
kids.
Oh,
Oh, no, go ahead.
go ahead, Blake.
I was just gonna say, like, there are the kids that are ate up with it. Like, one of my
Yeah.
best friends, her son ate up with baseball. Like, he loves it. He's good at it. And so they do, like, they devote a lot of time and a lot of energy. But I just feel like it's different. Like,
Yeah.
and I thought about that friend a lot when I was reading your book because they they are using this to like spiritually form their children, and I admire the way
Mm,
that they do it, even though like, and she knows like they travel more than I would want to, they are gone more than I would want to be, but they do it together and
mm,
they have boundaries around it and they love it. And so there
yeah.
are again like two conversations to be had there, where like there are children that are just, they really are passionate and they want to do this and they want to see how far they can take it. And I don't think anybody's advocating against that, but that there is a whole other side to this of kids that are just being kind of run into the ground.
Yeah. Well, and like that sets me up for exactly where I wanted to go. So the youth sport industrial complex is a thing. It is it's this industry, it's a machine, and it's out there. It's made up of people, but it's out there. The thing that Brian and I find ourselves talking an awful lot about, and maybe even as we think about would we do another book, this is what I would want to write about. If there's a problem in youth sports in my kid's life, more than likely the problem is starting with me. And that's the really hard thing to have to admit, that I have dreams in my mind of what I want it to look like for them. I have my own regrets from the past. I have my own unresolved hurts, that I want them to kind of make up for. I won't say that out loud, but again,
Yeah.
if I'm honest with myself, that's happening. I have my own insecurities that are working themselves out amongst other parents based on my kid's performance or lack of performance or where he or she is at in the pecking order on the team. I feel something inside myself about that. I got a lot of anger issues that come out and I let come out inappropriately in at games,
Yeah.
and that I take them out on my kid afterwards because I didn't like what he or she did on the court or on the field. Those are me issues. Um, and sometimes that's the hardest thing to admit.
Yeah. No, that is
And
probably the hardest thing to admit because that it's so much easier when you can focus it in on either your kid or the team that they're on or the coach. And
blame it
then when
somewhere
you,
else. Yeah.
right. And then when you actually get really, it's so funny. So the episode that is coming out before you guys is about boyhood restored, like letting boys be
Mhm.
boys and play. And we talked a lot about unstructured, like not adult supervised time and how integral that is to child development. And she brought up, like stranger danger and all those kinds of things. But one
Mhm.
of the things we really landed on, I'm not a boy mom, I have girls. But one of the things that we landed on that's kind of universal to parenting is how often God will like just put a mirror in front of you and go like, all of these things that you are struggling
Yeah.
with in your parenting are flowing out of you and things that you haven't dealt with and healed. And
Yeah.
I don't know now. I can't remember if I've like said this in the episode, but like my daughter was in competitive cheer and we ended up having to let her quit because she was miserable. She loves the sport. She hated the performing. She had so much anxiety that it was like, we had a lot of fear that she was going to end up hating this thing that she's good at. And when it came down to letting her quit,
It hurt
oh,
you, didn't it?
oh man,
It
like
hurt.
the pride and the like
Yes.
reception that we had to battle through and kind of having to check like, oh, there was a part of me that was going to force her to keep doing this
Yes.
because
Yes.
it, I will be honest, there was a huge part of it for me that was like, she's good. Like she's good at this. And I want to get to watch her keep getting better and keep showing up and blah, blah, blah. And then
Totally.
it was like, oh, we got to get out of the way. Like we got to get out of the way because we're going to end up doing exactly what I just said. We're going to end up driving her into the ground and making her hate this and
Yeah.
quit. And then what?
Good for
That's
you,
So
so good.
Blake.
Like this is what parents need though. Like this is kind of a counseling session right now, right? Like
I know. I thought that at the beginning.
we
I was
need to
like, I
talk
was
about these
counseling
things.
session.
We need to name what's going on, and we need to appropriately, this is going to sound weird to say, but you like appropriately need to grieve that, at least for the time being. It doesn't mean she's quitting forever, but for the
Right.
season
Yeah.
of life, she's done. And that's sad and that
Mhm.
sucks. And it's okay for parents to admit that. I think what we struggle with just collectively as parents is we don't say that out loud.
Mm.
And so the way it ends up manifesting itself is in our relationship with our kids, in the maybe the backhanded comments we make, or maybe
Mm.
we're a little bit shorter with them because we're resenting them. So if we're not talking about this, it's gonna come out somehow.
Yep.
Yeah.
We can't let it spill over on our kids. We need to have these
Right.
conversations with adults. Yeah.
Right. Well, because yeah, like I would say there was like a 24-hour period when so we took her to two competitions and she couldn't get out on the mat either time. Like massive panic responses.
Mm.
And as someone that had a lifetime of dealing with anxiety, I had an immense amount of empathy. And also, you're
Yeah.
like, "Oh no." Like
Yeah.
I've handed this down to her. Um
Yeah.
There's probably like 24 hours after the second competition we're talking to the coaches and we're like, we can't make her do this. This is not the point, right? Like the point is not to drive her until she does something. It's for her to enjoy it. And we really are here to have fun and for her also to grow in her skills. And there was probably like 24 hours where I was like, I was annoyed. I'm gonna be honest, like I was frustrated. I was disappointed that we weren't gonna get to watch her do something that she's really good at. But it
Yeah.
very quickly, God was like, so, I never treated you like that when you had too much anxiety to get out there and do
Mm.
things that I asked you to do. I never withheld my love from you. I never made you second guess it. And so let's not. And I very quickly was like, huh, yeah, for sure. That I don't want to do that. And so we have been able to like move forward. And I think I said this before we started recording. Homegirl cheers with her American Girl dolls like it's a team. Like she is still super in love with the sport. And I think that's because we didn't make her hate it with our
For sure.
responses or by pushing
Mm.
her.
Such a good way to say it. We didn't
Yep.
make her hate it. Like that's worth writing down. That's a great note. And you know what, Blake? She's probably getting better. That's the other
Homegirl's
thing.
nailing her handstands. Never could do it
She's
before.
Yes, she's
Yeah.
getting better, which at 8 years old, she doesn't have to be in front of an audience. She doesn't. For the next 3, 4, 5 years, she could just play with her American Girl dolls
Yes.
and continue to get better and grow in her love for it. And then maybe a light will come on where her security is more grounded at that point, or
Right.
whatever her ways of managing anxiety, which isn't just about sports, it's about life, and maybe she's just in a better place. But you did not cause her to hate it so that she never comes back to it.
Exactly.
Or more importantly, and Brian and I say this all the time, it's not going to matter whether my son is able to finish with his left hand at the basket in a few years in basketball, because that's what he's playing right now. And that's what I really want him to be able to do is finish. Really, it's not going to matter. But how I respond to him before and during and after games may determine whether he wants to come home for Thanksgiving when he's 25.
Come on. Yeah.
And that's way more important. It may have serious implications for how he views God in a few
Yeah.
years. He's learning way more about what we believe about Jesus from how I interact with him than he is at youth group.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I hope so. Right? Like
Yes.
you hope they are.
So
You hope that
yeah.
this is where it is.
So that's kind of sobering. And again, we're not saying that then for us all to feel under the pile. It's more like spiritual smelling salts and a slap in
Hmm.
the face to say, okay, yeah, how do I do this differently then? How do I start over again today?
Yeah. No, that's so good. That is so
It's a
good.
halftime speech. It's a halftime speech to say, hey, the first half of the game may not have gone how you wanted it to go. Here's what we learned. Here's what we're going to do differently. But let's hydrate. Let's get something in our system. Then let's go out and do it differently next time. So that's
Good,
what we're
Brian.
trying to do in
Talking
the
to like
book,
the
just to
parents.
encourage people. Yes,
Yes,
this
yes,
is
to
the parents.
us.
Yeah.
And it's often we keep saying this too. Most of the time it's well-intentioned parents. Like nobody's trying to be mean to their kid. Nobody's trying to make their kid hate sport.
No.
We just like sport probably a little bit too much and it spills over into how we interact with our kids.
Well, and we're functioning in this culture that
Yes.
Yep.
like
Yep.
it goes here and you're like, all right. And then it goes here and you're like, okay. And you like just keep climbing the ladder with it.
Yeah.
And then the next thing you know, you really are believing if my 8-year-old can't competitively cheer, she's never going to have a shot. She's never going to be able to cheer for high school
Right.
if she decides she wants to do that. She's never going to. What? That's
Yeah.
crazy talk, but it's understandable. And there are so many parents getting sucked into that. And I'm like, I don't know, dude. Maybe it'd be better if we just like let our kids play basketball in the driveway and get confident and love it. Like it, and I don't know. I'm not in the complex. Like, are kids getting let? I think you kind of spoke to this earlier, but let's speak to it again. Like the parents that are making that decision, that are opting out early, can these kids play as they get older? Or are they gonna get left behind?
Such a good question, Blake.
Good hair days are a big deal around here because I think they do more than we often give them credit for. When your hair is healthy, you feel more confident, more relaxed, and that is where Nutrafol comes in. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement brand, and it's the #1 hair growth supplement brand used by the dermatologists themselves. And adding Nutrafol to your routine is super easy. You can order online, you don't need a prescription, you can get automated deliveries and free shipping that will keep you on track. And with a Nutrafol subscription, you can get 20% off. So let your hair become one less thing taking up space in your head and see thicker, stronger, faster growing hair with less shedding in just 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol. And for a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month's subscription and free shipping when you visit Nutrafol.com and use the promo code Blake. That's Nutrafol.com, Nutrafol.com, promo code Blake.
You want me to answer it, Ed?
You go first.
I'll start. Yeah, so
You go first.
I'm a high school cross country coach. Um, the best kids are going to run on you run 7 people on varsity. I'm going to run my fastest seven runners. I don't care if they've been running since they've been 3 years old or they got really fast last year. And at the end of
Yeah.
the day, that's how most at least high school coaches are going to operate. They're going to play the best kids. Does it help for the high school coach to have seen the kid kind of grow up in the system? Yeah, absolutely. But by and large, if your kid is better than other kids on the team, they're going to get the opportunity to play.
Yeah.
And there's a million things. This is what I keep thinking about too, is that there's when my kid is 10 and I'm envisioning what's going to happen when he or she is 17 or 18, there are so many circumstances that are completely outside of our control that even if we get on this fast moving train and we get the best training and the best this and the best that, what happens if all of a sudden junior year, three kids at his or her position move in from out of town that are just better that you're not expecting?
Or what if he
Or
gets hurt?
they get hurt, or oh my gosh, they're ineligible because they're not handing in their work or they're not taking care of their business at school, which again,
Right.
none of us want to think that's going to be our kid. I was shocked in my own home to have one of my kids struggling because he just wasn't taking his work seriously and was
Yeah.
borderline ineligible for they're just things you're not expecting, or a coach that just doesn't like your kid or doesn't see him or her the same way that you do.
Yeah.
Brian just said he's gonna pick the best seven. Well, 8, 9, and 10, I'll bet you are pretty close to the seventh best. And he has to make a choice as to which one's gonna be seven. And so what does that mean for 8, 9, and 10? They're gonna have to just the way life is, you're gonna have to learn to live with stuff not always being fair, stuff not always working out the way you want it to work out.
Right.
You're not going to prevent that by the choices that you make when they're 10 years old about what club they're with. You'll actually help them to navigate that by the kinds of stuff you're pouring into their soul when they're 10,
Exactly.
so that when that unexpected stuff, disappointing stuff we need to grieve happens, we built something on their inside that goes beyond just their physical skills.
Right.
Let's say this too, Ed. There's a significant portion of the young athletic population that whether or not they make JV or varsity is not that big of a deal to them. It's a
Mm.
much
Wow.
bigger deal to the parents. It's a
Wow.
much bigger deal to the parents. So I'm not
Kids
saying
just
that
want to
for
play.
everybody.
They just want to play, Blake.
Yes, kids just want to play. And so it's us, again, well-intentioned parents who really care that runner number 8 is runner number 7. Maybe runner 8, 9, and 10 don't really care that much. So, and that's okay. They just
It is.
enjoy running.
Well, and I
So
can
that's why
speak
we
to
keep saying
that
let the kids drive the bus. Let them have some autonomy in the process.
because let me tell you, when my youngest quit, she did not care. Like, she did
Mm.
not grieve that she wasn't going to get to be on this team. She was just relieved that she wasn't going to have to feel like ride that emotional roller coaster before every competition. And I'm telling
Yeah.
you guys, she loves it. Like,
Yeah.
everything if she's gonna watch something, I'm pulling up competitive cheer
Uh,
competitions. Like, she
mhm.
loves it, but she was like, get me out of here. You know what I mean? And so it's like, I thought she would be devastated and so disappointed, when in reality I think she was so relieved to
Wow.
just maintain her love of this thing rather than keep being pushed. And so I want to get into a little bit, the like section 2 of the book is these verses. So it's kind of like what sports, I took it to be like what the industrial complex could potentially manifest in your children, or like what it could naturally, and then how we can disciple and guide our children towards what we actually want to see in them. And so it's things like self-control and impulsiveness, gentleness and shame, humility and pride. And I think it's going to be a wake up call for a lot of parents, because I think we can have the tendency to hand our children over to these coaches, and like we were talking about at the beginning of the show, kind of had this idea that the sport builds the character, when that's really our job. And you guys did a fantastic job throughout that section of really bringing to light how this can show up in our kids. And I also appreciated that you didn't just put it all in sports lab. You also were like what we were just talking about. Like, you, the parent, can kind of accidentally encourage this pride in your kid when really like we all want our kids to be humble. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so what of those, I can't remember how many there are. It's quite a few.
7, I think, in the
That I
book.
think it is 7.
Yeah.
Which ones would you say, if we're honest, we're stepping on toes, like parents are kind of we're dropping the ball. Like
Yeah.
we're seeing this monster kind of grow in our kids that are in sports.
Brian, think about where you want to jump into that, and let me say this first. And Blake, you just now kind of said it, but let's just even make it clearer. Anytime we step out into society, we are being malformed by that society to be anti-gospel. Again, for those listeners who would align with the Christian worldview, and I know not everybody necessarily does, but if you do, then you understand that like the majority of the world is not pushing us towards Jesus,
Right.
it's pushing us away from him. And so, and Brian and I are real careful to say this. So one response would be, well, we just need to get completely out of the world. And I know a lot of us make that choice. We just try to separate entirely. Um, Others of us don't think about it at all. We just get completely assimilated to whatever's going on and we become just like the society, and that's not good.
Yeah.
We've been saying we want to follow in the footsteps of Daniel, the biblical character of Daniel, who was in a totally godless society. He didn't isolate himself or separate himself from it. He didn't get all sucked up into it. He was asking with a handful of other friends, how do I be obediently involved in this
Yeah.
and continue to be transformed? Again, he didn't have this language the way we do, but to be transformed by the renewing of his mind as he pursued God in the midst of it.
Yeah.
But by first recognizing I'm being malformed by being in Babylon.
Yeah.
And so we are all being malformed by the youth sport industrial complex and really just sport culture in general. It's pushing us away from the gospel in subtle ways all the time.
Yeah.
So we just need to acknowledge it and then say, how do we counter that? How do we counter it? And so, yeah, Brian, I think because we end up talking about a handful of these over and over and over again, what do you think are some of the biggest ones that we should be paying closer attention to with our kids?
Yeah, I mean, I would start with love versus self-centeredness because I mean we put that as the first kind of virtue versus vice in the book for a reason. And if you think about, man, what is sport culture teaching our kids left unchecked? So again, let's go all bad. Obviously, there's integration that needs to happen, but if we go all bad on sport culture, it's teaching our kids that their individual place on the team hierarchy matters. It teaches them to get their playing time at all costs, that they need praise for their performance, that there is mourning when we don't get the attention that we deserve. There's NIL deals and sponsorships. There's branded social media accounts for 8-year-olds now. There's my opportunities, my personal best. And none of those are necessarily bad. We're not saying that. But if you look at how Jesus calls us to live and how Jesus interacted with people during his time on earth, what was he doing? He was constantly other-centered. He would go into environments and time after time after time, he would see people, notice people, and engage with people. And yes, he's Jesus, King of the universe, but he consistently moved and navigated in spaces where you just got the sense that he really did care about other people. And what was he doing? He was showing love to others. This idea of agape love that we see all throughout scripture that we would define it as doing what's best for somebody else in spite of what it might cost me.
Yeah.
And who's teaching our kids that in sports? What would it look like then for us as parents to have a new set of metrics as we asked our kids after practice or after games, instead of just saying, how did it go? How many points did you score? What did the coach say? What if we began asking questions like, who did you notice was having a hard time today? Hey, who did you talk to today? Who did you encourage today? Who on your team just seemed a little bit off today? So like even the questions that we ask become ways that we're discipling them because our kids are ultimately going to celebrate what we replicate, or they're going to replicate what we celebrate, sorry. So if they see, man, mom and dad really seem to care about me caring about other people, what are they going to do in sport? They have
Yeah.
a natural inclination to want to please their parents. They're going to start noticing other people. They're going to start engaging and asking questions towards other people. And so that's just one way that we can help push against the me self-centeredness culture of sport and lean more into a Jesus-centered way of doing things is to teach our kids how to love well. We don't need to
Yeah.
tell them that this is loving. We just need to tell them, hey, try to take your eyes off yourself today and focus on other people. What would that look like?
Well, and
That's
I
good.
think off of the conversation that we've been having, like we have to also take our eyes off of just our
Yeah.
kid.
Yeah,
Like
Blake.
we are perpetuating that by, I'm gonna step on toes, centering our entire family schedule around our kids' sports, or all of our travel around our kids' sports, or going to the practices or going to the games and only noticing our kid. Like maybe your
Yeah.
kid isn't off the bat, pun intended, gonna be able to like notice that somebody else was struggling, but you as an adult will. And so you
Yeah.
can, if you're not just eyeballs on your kid, then you can notice that somebody else was struggling and you can ask them about, like, hey, it
That's
seemed
it.
like John was off. Like, did you check it? Like, did you notice that? Did you check in with him? Like, if we can take our eyeballs off of our children, and I say that as someone that like my kids are my full-time job. Like they
Yeah.
are everything and I want everything for them. But I also don't want them. And my husband and I talk about this often, even outside of the sports conversation, is like, I don't want our girls to think they're the center of our universe. I want them to be very clear that that's Jesus and that
Yeah.
through that we serve and we see people. And then also, yes, you are like vitally important to me at the same time.
Yeah. Good, Blake. Listen, the gospel shaped life is not natural to any of us. So I just
Exactly.
think we need to keep saying that. Our collective default is probably going to be to do the wrong thing. It's going to be to be self-centered and to be focused entirely on my kids. So again, that language of intervention and being transformed by a renewal that happens and getting a perspective that causes us to be counterculture. We're different, even different than a lot of our Christian friends. That's the
Yeah.
thing that gets really messy because this can be really bad in Christian schools too. All the stuff we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yes.
They are
Okay.
not
Okay.
immune. They are not
Okay.
immune.
So so some of the worst actually, but that may be a whole other podcast. But it's not natural, and so yes, I don't need to feel overridden with guilt or shame or whatever. No, this is kind of that wake up call that says, okay, let me start noticing other kids.
Yeah.
Like we've made ourselves go to some games when our kid was sick or wasn't going to play for whatever reason, wasn't going to be there at all. And it's like, well, we don't really want to go. And he's not even there. And it's like, well, no, it's this whole very point. Let's go support Lenny. Let's go
Yeah.
support Tatum. Right?
Yeah.
I don't want to do that the whole season, but if he wasn't going to
Right.
play the whole
Within
season,
reason.
within reason, but let's go invest time and let's go, care about. And when we've done that, we know because of feedback we've gotten, it impacts the other parents.
Yeah.
And
100%.
so guess what? When they want to talk about something serious or they want to talk about something beneath the surface, guess who they're coming to right now to talk to?
Yeah.
Guess who's leading a Bible study now with 10 ninth graders that the parents are trusting? A lot of non-Christian parents are trusting their kids to come to our house for us to lead a Bible study because they just have smelled that there's something a little different about the
Something
way we
different.
operate.
Yeah.
And it's just from taking our eyes off of our kid and starting to notice them.
Yeah. No, that's so good. And that it is like I think it's really easy to get caught up in this and not see that this is just one more way that we do. We get to be different. Like we get to look different than anybody. Like don't measure it against even the Christian, like you were saying, the Christian parents around you. Like, what do you like? Are you praying about your kids'
Yeah.
sports? Are you praying about how you show up? Because
Yeah.
that will
Good,
really
Blake.
inform the way that you make those kinds of decisions. Another one that I really loved was the gentleness versus shame slash like
Mm,
blame, I think it was, because as I grow as a parent and as a human, I am more and more aware of that is, I think shame and blame is one of the enemy's favorite tools
yeah.
to distance us from our father, to distance us from our true identity, because we viscerally hate it. Like nobody likes to feel that. And then as a parent to kind of have to recognize that you have been, I would hope a lot of the time unintentionally imparting that to your kids, the way that you're communicating with them about things can be really difficult.
Yeah, so
They've
good. And it
they've
goes,
actually done studies that have like when elite athletes have lost, they've tried to identify the emotion that's attached to that. Yes, there's sadness, there's frustration, but shame is one of the most prominent
mm,
emotions that they identify. And so it really is like it's a gospel opportunity when our kids, whether it's lose or they get benched, they make a mistake, they things don't go well for them in sport, it becomes a gospel opportunity because again, sport culture is going to push towards that shame and blame. What's our response going to be as parents? We need to do the self-check to start with like I don't want to be the person that's going to contribute to that, even if they should have finished with their left hand, but they didn't for the 10th time in a row.
yeah.
I need to take a deep breath. And when they come to me, instead of talking about the game, maybe they just need a hug. Maybe they need me to look them in the eye and to say, I know that didn't go well today. I love you. I loved watching you play today. Let's go get a Slurpee. Like
Yeah.
they need to experience a gospel response from us as parents. And that could be later in life what leads them closer to Jesus is when somebody like they hear the gospel maybe for the first, second, or third time, they can say, I've actually smelled that through the relationship with my parents. I know what
Mm,
it is to fall short time and time again and have somebody that stands in the gap and says, no, I still love you because you're my daughter. I still love
yeah.
you because of my son. How you performed does not matter to me. I love you based on relationship, not based on results.
Yeah.
And
That's good.
the problem with that is that, again, just doing a self check, I would never admit that I loved them less. But it's really easy after a game to feel some disdain when your kid hasn't done well. It is. It's
And
like I'm
embarrassment. Like you're,
embarrassed. Yes,
yeah, like
Yep.
you're
embarrassed, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
embarrassed.
I was embarrassed. I feel like we said earlier, I feel less than these other parents right now because of the way you operated. You're not doing enough to get in the game if our kid is one of the ones that's sitting on the bench. And so again, I need to check that. I was going to point out, and I love the shame gentleness also, Blake, and I feel like it's tied very closely to the whole anxiety and
Oh, 100%.
peace, because the solution really ultimately that for us as parents is to create a foundation in our kids of security.
Hmm.
And that's one of my main priorities is to create security inside them by the way I interact with them.
Good.
And I think that most of us probably assume that our, oh, of course my kid knows I love him. I do this and this and this and the other. But in the context of youth sports, again, if you could see the mirror or you could watch the replay, you could watch the film. I say for myself, when I've gone back to watch the film and had these conversations with Amy, my wife Amy, it's like, no, I was bad. My tone was awful over and over and over again, not just one time, but always after games, just awful, critical, um, always disappointed. Even I could be silent, and in my silence, I'm communicating disappointment.
Yeah.
And what they literally need us to intentionally say, we have to get there ourselves to say, my gosh, this game really, really doesn't matter, but you do. And
Exactly.
I've got your back. Yeah, you were not good today. So that's the other thing. I'm not going to then act like it wasn't true. Yeah, you sucked today. Okay, whatever. I love you. And I'm just so glad you were even able to be here and play today. We had
Yeah.
health today. You're on this team. And like Brian said, let's go get a Slurpee. Let's go get ice cream. It didn't go the way you wanted it to go, but you get to show up and do it again tomorrow, which is kind of cool.
Because the
It's just,
shame is going to come in. Like it doesn't need
yes.
help. The
It doesn't
shame
need
is
help.
going
Good.
to come in. That is unfortunate human nature. Your kid is already, they are aware. They know that they did not finish or whatever. Like I think back
Yeah.
to we did two competitions and she didn't hit the mat for either of them. Okay. The first one, we did not handle well. We did not. Like I will admit that. And that we didn't like nail her to the wall or anything, but it's cringe, but like we thought we were doing the right thing by telling her, like, you let your team down by not going out there.
Yeah.
and then we were really blessed to have really incredible coaches who were like, she did not let her team down. They like, she did not let her team down. That is not how
Wow.
we feel. Like, you don't let, you don't let your team down by having like an overwhelming emotional response to something you've never done before. And we were kind of like, oh, oh, my bad. Never mind. Like, wait, we thought that this was what we were supposed to say. Like, we've never done this before. Um, and then the second time we were able to meet her with like a lot more compassion and understanding and kind of get her out of there and take care of her. And I'm gonna like, she still had shame. She didn't regret it. She wasn't sorry that she didn't have to do this anymore. But you can tell they just like make themselves a little bit smaller and more
Yeah.
quiet. And
Yeah.
I was like, I'm so thankful for that coach going, let's not do that. That's not going to help anything to help pivot our response because, like I said, the shame is going to come in. It really does not need to be facilitated by you. What they need is to be met the way that, like, you as an adult need to be met. When you mess something up and you messed up, do you need your boss going, what was that? Or do you need
No.
them going, all right, not our
Yeah.
best, but like, you're not fired?
You
Like
need the
it's,
you need the father who welcomes the prodigal son, the
yeah,
sinning, failing, disappointing, shame-filled son back home
yeah.
with open arms and says, "Let's throw a party because of our relationship." They don't need to run into the older brother over and over again who's got his arms folded saying, "What?" Like he doesn't
Why are you
deserve that.
here? Yeah.
Yeah, why are you here? You shouldn't be here. And again, I think way too often I've been the older brother to my kids when what they need is me to be their father,
Yeah.
their loving father who can see beyond even this moment. You guys, so I'm 58 now, so I'm 20 years older than you, Blake. I've already been through this with three kids. Like I said, they're all nearing the end of their time in college. Got a ninth grader still. So I coached my son, my oldest son's baseball team when he was 10, 11, 12, 13. So for 3 or 4 years there, I coached his team. That was 15 years ago. And there was chaos around those teams. There was backstabbing and betrayal and just
And that's a whole
horrible
part of this
parent
we haven't
stuff.
gotten into.
I know, I know. There was, as a coach of the team, there was horrible parent stuff going on. There was a coup one year, half the team left. Kids were getting poached from the team. Kids were leaving because their parents wanted them to go to a more intense system than what we were running. All the stuff we're talking about. But this is what I can tell you. I don't remember hardly a single thing from those 4 years in terms of games. I really don't. And maybe that's just because I'm getting older now. But I mean, 5 years ago, I would have said the same thing. 10
Yeah.
years after it was over, I don't remember hardly anything from any of those games. And I remember feeling like every day was so important to his future and that I was so frustrated that he wasn't doing X, Y, or Z when it came to the game. And it's just like looking back now, it's like that stuff really didn't matter. And I just feel like we need to keep hearing that from older people to speak back into those
Yeah.
of us. I still have a kid, but those of us who maybe don't even have any kids yet, it's just good to, oh, wow. It's just good to store that away. It really doesn't matter as much as it's being taught to us that it seems like it does. It
Yeah.
doesn't, but that other stuff does.
You remember the chaos.
I do remember the chaos,
But
actually. I
I
remember
think
that
that
way
that
better than
counts for something. Like you
yes.
remember the discontent, you remember the
Yes.
drama, you
Yeah.
remember that you maybe didn't always handle it well, but you don't
Yes.
remember like what games were won and lost and what like how well they played.
I
And
really don't.
it's kind of, I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it kind of sounds like that counts for something. Like there's maybe not regret, but like I wish I would have known that like I was acting like this was the end of the world. And now 15 years later, I can't even remember what I thought was the end of the world.
Totally. And it's in the book, and Brian's got same stories.
Yeah.
And so again, let that be encouraging though. Hear that as
Yeah. Oh,
encouragement.
yeah.
I'm actually encouraged. Really, I learned because we were having these conversations at this time. All of us were. And I feel like I was given opportunities to change. I've apologized to my son. We have a great relationship today because
Yeah.
apology, that's another gospel
Huge.
um, option, isn't it? To admit, I'm sorry, I was wrong. I talked to you in ways I shouldn't have. I created pressure because I was feeling all these things. I've said those things to him, and he's forgiven me, and we have a great relationship.
Yep.
I
Repair
don't
and
think I'm doing
rupture.
it. Yeah, I'm not doing it the same way with the other ones. I'm
Exactly.
not. They're getting a
Exactly.
different experience
Yeah.
because we went out in the second half and we can get, like Brian said, those halftime adjustments, or we can watch the film and be honest and it hurts a little bit, but it's like, no, there's a different way forward where you can have close relationship with your kids in the midst of this thing. It doesn't really matter. Guess what? If they're going to be good, it's not going to be because of you.
Yeah.
It's not. Brian,
No,
what do we
because
say to
you
people all the
can't.
time?
No, go ahead.
What do we say to people are the
We said,
qualifications for becoming good?
yeah, two things. One, they just have a God-given disposition with their genetics, and so God has just wired them to be 6'8" or be able to jump really far or throw something far. And then two, they have a God-given disposition where they just are motivated to get better
Exactly.
at things.
On their
They're
own.
they're the ones who mom has to call them in for
Yep.
dinner, and dad's not saying, "Hold on, 5 more minutes." It's the kid who's saying, "Hey, 5 more minutes. I really want to get this right over here."
Yep. Yep.
You can't buy that. You can't.
No,
An
you can't
elite team
force
is
it
not going to do
either.
that.
Can't
Yeah.
manipulate it. You can't
No.
manipulate it into them.
No,
Yep.
no, I know I've brought it up a couple of times, but like where I'm sitting right now is my office and I can see straight into our front yard. I cannot tell you. And I don't know, like I love her little brain. I feel like I haven't talked about my oldest a whole bunch, whereas because she's the kind of the other side of this. She has the dedication, she has the love, she has the passion. She's easy. Like she's like begging us to put her in more dance classes and
Hmm.
can't wait for her recital. And also that's my world, right? Like dance,
Yeah.
my world, like that's pretty seamless. So I don't mean to like leave her out. There's just, I need this conversation for my youngest a lot more. I can't tell you how often I look out this window and there's 5 American Girl dolls doing a cheer competition and like I cannot get her to come inside and do math. You know what I mean? So like it's
I
I didn't
love that.
teach her that. I did it, the dolls were not my idea, but like I see that in her and it makes me thankful that right now she can just play. And I
Yep.
love that you guys end the book that way of like I think there's a line where you're like, do you want your kids to embrace the gospel? Prioritize and protect play for them. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. Yeah, like we're doing that. Okay, awesome. Like that's I don't think a lot of parent I think and we've made this qualification so many times, like there's I think it's with the best intentions, but
Yep.
we're like eradicating play for our kids and the
Yeah.
results aren't great.
Yeah. Well, maybe your daughter, and again, who knows, but this is encouraging. We want her to dance. You're encouraged because you see her even playing dance, but maybe what she's actually being trained to do is to be a film director.
Right.
Maybe she's actually being trained to stand in front of groups of people and lead them as she's directing her American Girl dolls in this cheer
100%.
competition. She's actually honing skills that are going to have nothing at all to do directly with sport or
Yeah.
dance, but it's something else. And so sport in this context became an opportunity, one for her to grow closer to you and knowing that you care about her more than her being in dance. You've
Yeah.
said that now to her as an 8 year old, which she needs, which is freeing her up to continue to play at dance. But that just may be training for something else.
We say she's
And
going to be a
can we
cruise
be
director.
she could be a cruise director, yes.
Like something like that.
And will
Yeah.
we be okay with that? And I realize a lot of times with even the list that I've had with my kids, like I'm not okay with that because I wanted you to be something else. And it's like, all right, dude, stop. It's not,
Oh,
you don't get to, you don't get to do that. It's their
I
life.
totally had to come to terms with that. I had built this future dream of sitting in the stands at a high school football game and she's on the
Yeah.
sidelines. 100%. Could that still happen? Yes. Was it worth our relationship? Not
Mm.
in a million years. Not in a million years. Yeah. I am so thankful to have gotten to have this conversation with you guys. I think I'm hoping that I mean, this was essentially a counseling session for me, and I love that. But
For
I
me
think
too.
that it
All of us.
will,
I think all of us.
I think it'll meet everybody where they are, whether you're in it or you haven't, like, you've gotten out of it, you're trying to decide if you're going to get into it, which kind of feels like playing jump rope. Like that it is possible to do this well, to use this complex to like build character in your children, to point them to Jesus, to direct them towards the gospel. But then also it's a permission slip that you don't have to get on the train, which I think a lot of people need as well. And so away game is, I'd like genuinely so recommend. I love when I get to actually read the books of the people that I'm interviewing. And this is one that I got to, and it was, even as a kid, like I don't technically have a kid in sports right now, and it was still really,
Yeah.
really beneficial. So thanks, you
Thanks,
guys.
Blake. When
Thanks, Blake.
we're encouraging people to do it together.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
try to do this alone. Like,
Yeah.
get a copy of the book and read it and talk. It just gives you language to have this conversation with each other and make your corner of the bleachers look different. You don't have to
Exactly.
fix the whole world of sports. You can't go back and fix things that have happened in the past, but this week it could look different in your corner of the bleachers.
That's so good.
And
You
you're
can
not
change a
Jesus.
culture.
You're not Jesus, so you're not going to do it perfectly. When you make the mistakes, apologize, take a deep breath, learn from it, and do it differently the next time.